No more football on this Sunday evening, but we're going to give you at least an hour more to put off the Sunday scaries here on the All NFL Sunday Huddle. And tonight on the panel, I am joined by Johnny Venerable, the winner of this group so far. I am joined by Jeff Kavanaugh, who is having himself a day. And I'm joined by Bull Wolf, who doesn't know what his team has done in this week yet. And filling in for your normal host, Adam Hogue, I am RK. Gentlemen, well, let's go one by one here. I'll start with Johnny. Johnny, how are you feeling today?
Doing great. I'm having a fabulous day. The Cardinals beat the Rams at home for the first time in 10 years. It's not hyperbole. They have not beaten the Rams at home in a decade. And they've only beaten Sean McVay twice entering today. So Jonathan Gannon, I'm happy for him. And it was a complete performance. Excited to talk about it. Jeff, how are you doing?
Also a complete performance. Yeah, really excited about everything that the Cowboys did today. They were like 500 straight home wins until the last two times they've taken the field at AT&T Stadium, where Green Bay made them look like they shouldn't be an NFL team. And then today, again, looked like the Cowboys should probably be relegated. But I don't know where to send them. So, yeah, I'm vibing. You kidding me? What a great day.
Bo, how are you doing?
I'm good. I think a lesser man might say, oh man, midnight East Coast. I'm doing this show for a game, a team that didn't play, and I got a Monday night game tomorrow night. But I look at this as like practice makes perfect. I got the post game show tomorrow night. I'm going to be up late anyway. Might as well get the reps in.
Don't pretend like today wasn't awesome for you.
Yeah.
Today was awesome for you. You had a great time.
Yeah, I got to hang out and watch football all day long with the kids. It was great.
People, and this is like just an us thing, but people don't realize how nice it is when your team doesn't have a Sunday game and you just get to watch all of the games and not have any stress or worry about what's going on in your city. It's just like, I'm just going to be a football fan today and have a couple beers on the couch and soak this up.
Yeah, the red zone gets worn out on a day like this.
I love it. Well, the red zone did not get worn out for the Denver Broncos today, I'll tell you that. But we're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk, of course, about the Cardinals and their big day today. I want to know what you guys think of whether it was more about the Cowboys today or more about the Saints. We'll get into a little preview of the Eagles. We might have Nicholas Moriano from CHGO Bears join us, depending on if he can get out of press conferences and pop on here. But speaking of the Bears, we start there with Sunday Night Football, which just wrapped up tonight. And guys, I want to know where you're at currently on Caleb Williams. Obviously, in week one, you didn't really even get to see much of the flashes. Tonight, I think you saw a little bit of the flashes. So, Bo, I want to start with you. Just what was your vibe about the Caleb Williams experience tonight?
Yeah, I think I'm still in on Caleb Williams pretty strongly. I'm getting close to maybe being tepidly out on Shane Waldron. The plan for preparing for what the Texans defense was throwing at them, obviously not very good. And all of these sort of just, sort of Bo Nixy type throws where it's like 5 yards or shorter from the line of scrimmage, not doing too much for me. So, I think you do have to say that this Texans defense could be one of the best in the league. So this is not necessarily the biggest red flag of a performance. I think some of those, the interceptions that he throws, the extemporaneous plays, those are things that you would expect that he gets better with over time. And there's a long history of quarterbacks who throw a bunch of interceptions in their rookie season, getting better over time, Peyton Manning being one of them. So I'm still pretty in on Caleb Williams, but I do, for me, the clock is sort of ticking on whether the Bears are going to have to make a change in who they're going to trust to make Caleb Williams the quarterback that he can be.
Jeff, what did you think?
Obviously, a couple of games in, it's so hard, and he's incredibly talented. But 2 weeks of NFL football, it's just kind of been welcome to the NFL stuff, I think. But there are a lot of plays that, you're used to seeing Caleb Williams make in college, where he buys time, he moves around, he makes an incredible throw. Holy cow, that worked out. And in the NFL so far, it seems like he can still kind of do that. Oh, okay, I bought time. Here we go. Here comes the amazing throw, and the amazing throw gets intercepted. So I think that there's just a natural learning curve, that you're no longer playing against a few NFL players on a team against you. The pressures are different. They're harder to get away from. There's always somebody else coming. It's not supposed to be so easy for a DC like it was tonight, where the answer was, if you didn't blitz Caleb Williams, he was really good. And if you did, he was awful. It's not supposed to be that simple. And I do think that there's a learning curve. He's super talented. I'm definitely not out on him, but I'll eyebrow raise at him, while at the same time acknowledging that the Bears have made every quarterback that they've had look terrible for a long time now.
Go ahead, Johnny.
Yeah, I'll piggyback off that. He's fighting years and decades of rich Chicago Bear history, and not in a good way, where they've never had a viable franchise quarterback in the sense that, top 10 to 12 in the NFL in passing yards and touchdowns. I inevitably believe Caleb Williams will get there, but I also think it's a little bit funny to look back at some of the narratives this offseason and talking about the Chicago Bears being a contender in the NFC, like a true contender. There were people who thought they were going to win the division and be a top seed for a guy who's never taken an NFL snap. And I think, CJ Stroud, be damned, we just don't see that all that often. Then you look at some of the complementary players they brought in. Keenan Allen hasn't been a factor. Rome Odunze, I don't think is in the class yet of a Neighbors or a Marvin Harrison Jr. They have a long way to go. I think they're going to be viable, probably more toward end of October, November, December, but that could still end up netting them like 7 or 8 wins this year. They're in a very unique spot with Caleb, where there's these expectations, these weighted expectations of, you need to be good right away, but oh, by the way, you're a rookie too. Like, our timeline was fitting Justin Fields. Like, his pop year was supposed to be last year and this year, and we're supposed to be winning the NFC North. Now with Caleb, they're trying to have their cake and eat it too, and it's just like, maybe he just needs to be a rookie for a year, and you let the win-loss kind of be damned.
Yeah, I agree. And kind of looking back on Caleb in college, and for those of you who don't know, I spent many years covering the Broncos and now mostly focused on covering Colorado football. So I watched Caleb a lot in the Pac-12, and I think he has like a thing that you probably want in your quarterback, which is like a little bit of like a Superman complex. It's just like, I can make anything happen at any time. And in college, a lot of times he did make those plays. And like tonight you saw, I think that he feels like when he gets the opportunity to make one of those crazy plays where you escape out of nowhere, and then you're keeping, towing the line of scrimmage, and you're just like, okay, this is my chance to uncork one down the field. We haven't had this opportunity all night. He feels like he has to take it. And what you see with guys, even like Patrick Mahomes, who, is able to pull off those magician-like plays, there are some times where you just look out there and you're just like, there's nothing. So I just have to, punt this and go and live to see another down. And I think he'll learn that over time. It was nice, if you're someone who wants to see Caleb Williams succeed, it was nice tonight to see him do some of the easy stuff and make it look easy. I just think there's a larger learning curve there than maybe anyone would have expected or hoped for Caleb to realize what he can and can't get away with. And he's no longer, the best athlete every single time he sets foot on the football field.
Yeah, I think Jeff said it. Like the welcome to the NFL moments are coming, and they're necessary. Like, those are the reps in live games are something that you cannot substitute for. And so I think like it's all in service of making him better both this season and down the line. And the good news is, if you're a Bears fan watching the game tonight, like, that defense seems pretty for real, right? And so I think they're going to give them a chance to like allow for the growing pains that Caleb Williams needs while still keeping them somewhat competitive.
And on that same kind of note, like last week, the Bears had a very similar game, but Caleb didn't make the big mistakes. And because of that, they were able to just kind of squeak by and eke by with the win. Whereas tonight, he puts the ball in harm's way just a little bit too much, and it just doesn't give them a chance to win. Quickly, just on the Texans, where are you guys at there? I'll start with Johnny. Like, how do you feel about that team this year, especially compared to when they just burst onto the scene last year?
I think they're in a really advantageous spot because their division, I think, is really fraudulent. And what that allows you to do if you're Houston is vie for a 1 seed, have an opportunity to host a Mahomes or Josh Allen or Lamar in your building. And, I'm a believer in DeMeco Ryans and certainly CJ Stroud. We lived it as Cardinal fans last year. The Cardinals owned the first-round pick of the Houston Texans that was projected to be a top 5 pick last year. It ended up falling all the way to pick 27. So we were gutted every single football Sunday as CJ Stroud stole our draft hearts every single football Sunday. So I think they've got all the skill sets, all the weaponry offensively. I love the addition of Stephon Diggs. Danielle Hunter, who was a madman tonight, just absolutely abusing Caleb Williams toward the end of that game. I think they have a AFC contending roster. Like, I'm not going to sit here and tell you guys that I think anybody's beating Kansas City and their culture. But, like, I could definitely see a scenario in which, like, they win 14 games playing the Tennessees and the Jacksonvilles and the Indies of the world and have an opportunity to put themselves in a really nice position come January. So, yeah, I'm buying them long-term. CJ's a special player. It's going to go down as an all-time draft, bungle, to say the least, for Carolina. Like, that's something you don't get over as a franchise for decades, passing on him.
Jeff?
I did love Bryce Young's quote after the game, though, and I don't mean to blaspheme. I assure you it's accidental. But when somebody asks you about your confidence and you say, I have confidence in the Lord, it sounds like you might not have too much in yourself or your team at this moment. But that's okay. And he shouldn't, in his team or himself, probably. I think a couple of things about the Texans. It depends if you're a believer in style pointing wins. Because if I were going to style point wins, I don't think the win over Indianapolis was impressive, and I don't think that their win today was impressive. And today was probably even less so. You just had so many times where you get the ball and you could put this game away over and over and over, and they didn't. But at the same time, given the division, you're 2-0. I think the world gets a little bit tougher because you mentioned how last year went. Last year, depending on how you want to rank teams before the season starts, most people would have predicted that was going to be a 4 or 5 win team that was going to be really, really bad again. And you got to sneak up on people and be really, really fun. You don't get to be fun anymore. Now you're supposed to dominate that division. You're supposed to win double-digit games. And we'll see. Over the course of the next 4 or 5, the next 5 weeks, they'll get Jags and Bills and Packers in there. And we'll get to see them against some tougher teams, and you're not sneaking up on anybody this year. So, I really like their team. I think that they're doing all in the right way with a rookie quarterback and the things they added this offseason. I think it's a really, really good team. If it's possible to say I'm not impressed by a 2-0 team, trust me, I'd love my team to be 2-0 and not be impressed. But I'm not impressed with their 2-0 start, and we'll see.
Yeah, I think I've been a little bit more impressed by the Texans because I think what they have is what the best teams have is that they can win a lot of different ways, and they haven't won either of these first 2 games with an explosive offense that we know that they can have. I mean, Nico Collins, I think, arguably now a top 10 wide receiver. CJ Stroud, arguably a top 5 quarterback. That's kind of why I've been a little bit disappointed in the Bobby Slowick experience through the first 2 weeks. You talked about it, like. They had so many chances to ice this game away. I didn't love the play calling, and maybe I'm being too hard on the coordinators on both sides of this matchup. But I think what you guys talked about, like the schedule is easy enough for them that they should be, the expectation for them should be to compete for the number 1 seed in the AFC. I think they need to see, let's let CJ Stroud cook a little bit more because that defense, I think, is really good.
Yeah, I think I'm honestly as high as like anyone could possibly be on CJ Stroud. I'm constantly kind of blown away by just how comfortable he looks and how calm he is in pressure situations, and his arm and his ability to scramble and keep his eyes downfield, and just he kind of checks every single box for me as an NFL quarterback. From an offensive standpoint, I kind of wonder if they're still adjusting to how many different weapons and guys who need the ball in their hands. Like last year, kind of felt like it was, CJ, just out there like throwing the ball around with his friends. And this year it's like there's more egos involved and more people involved, and you want to be a little more balanced with Joe Mixon. And I think that they're nowhere near where they'll probably be by the end of the season. So I'm giving them a little bit of break for the lack of style points early in the season. But I think when push comes to shove and they start to figure out their chemistry and their flow, it's really going to pop for them. Quickly,
Plus, they're just like punching guys and getting away with it.
Yeah, there you go. That was crazy. Why didn't they go to to a review there? Can't they do that? Go see who threw punches and whatnot?
Not if they don't throw a flag. It's a stupid rule.
They will review it and punish him now, but in the game, there's nothing.
I bet he gets suspended for the next game because he didn't get thrown out of that game. Don't you think?
Probably.
But I mean, sometimes people deserve to get punched, And I don't know if that one really called for it, but I just wanted to get that take out there. Do you think sometimes it needs to happen?
Do you think that's like a legitimate case that he can make to the NFL office? It's just like, hey, look, man, the guy desered it. Like, I can prove it with X, Y, and Z.
I got punishment enough by punching a face mask. Like, that should be like, I'm the dumb guy.
Yeah, it's not a good idea. It's not. You know how many tiny bones are in your hand? There's so many tiny bones. Don't risk your little tiny bones by punching people, especially when they're wearing armor.
I thought VHS Queen had a great comment and question there in the chat, just about this being its own thing. It is its own thing. So you can, if you find yourself being a fan of this show and the rotating panel that we have here, you can become a subscriber at the All NFL podcast on YouTube. We just wanted to push it out to everyone to see and give everyone a chance to decide if they like it. So, if you're watching this on one of the other channels and you say, hey, this is pretty good, or this would be really good if Adam Hogue was the host instead of RK, you're going to get that. You're going to get, don't worry. You can go to the All NFL podcast on YouTube and join and get this every weekend. But we wanted to give you guys all a little sneak peek of it. All right. Winners first. I feel like that's the way that this should go here on this show. So, Johnny, your team was incredibly impressive today. The floor is yours to expound upon that.
Yeah, I'm not prepared at all. I have no notes with my abomination of a background, by the way. But no, in all seriousness, like, this team's won 8 games in 2 years. I told you guys off air they hadn't beaten Sean McVay in a decade, and they came out today and had the best performance of the Jonathan Gannon era, certainly, and something that was sorely due for this fan base. Like, this beating that they had continually taken by the LA Rams, it was comical. It's not a rivalry, and yet, no Aaron Donald makes a huge difference, and I think we saw that today. But this is a statement game for Jonathan Gannon, Kyler Murray, and Marvin Harrison Jr., kind of absolutely asserting themselves into this 2024 landscape in the NFC. Because I think you look around the conference and there's some teams that are 2-0, but there's a lot of parity right now. Some teams like Dallas and San Francisco and Detroit that were true contenders last year, I still think they're going to be viable, but maybe they've taken a step back, talent-wise, coordinator-wise, for whatever reason. Can the Arizona Cardinals make up that difference? And I think we saw that today. Like I said this on our post-game show, I firmly believe this. Like, the Arizona Cardinals, if they go 0-2 to this Rams team without Puka Nacua, with Cooper Kupp hobbling around, no Tyler Higbee, Stafford's missing a couple offensive linemen, no Aaron Donald. Like, if you're not going to beat them now, when are you going to beat them? And on the flip side, like, is the LA Rams season over? They play San Francisco next week. They're out of players. Like, I think effectively the Arizona Cardinals may or may not have just announced that the LA Rams are just not going to be viable this year. And I, for one, am 100% okay with that. But I mean, it starts and ends RK with the play of Kyler Murray. He's second in the NFL in QBR right now. We've seen this before. Like, the people who are skeptics of K1, I get it, but I only come at it from, like, can he play 17 games? Because when he plays 17 games, the Cardinals get at least 2-to-1 touchdown interception ratio production. They are viable. They are in the playoff mix. They are en route to making the postseason most of the time. And so, like, you saw that on display. He's fully healthy for the first time really since his ACL. He had a complete offseason. He was able to come in and attack this offseason with his new playmakers like Marvin, with a guy like Trey McBride, Michael Wilson, Greg Dortch. And the Cardinals are reaping the benefit of that. They absolutely could have gone the route of, we're going to take a Drake May, or we're going to lose out for Jaden Daniels or Caleb Williams. But Jonathan Gannon, Monty Ossenford said, no, we're just going to build this roster up around K1, whose contract, I think that's like 10th or 11th in the NFL right now, looks pretty good. So you saw Kyler Murray outplay Matthew Stafford today. And then finally, the Cardinals said, enough of this screwing around. We're sorry. We need a mulligan from last week. We didn't know what we were doing. They fed Marvin Harrison Jr. early and often, and they absolutely made the LA Rams pay. Marvin Harrison Jr. undressed Tre'Davious White up and down the field for a quarter and a half. The point with this team where, like, do they have deficiencies defensively? Absolutely, right? Can Kyler Murray get banged up as the season progresses? 100%. But there's no doubt that with Marvin Harrison Jr. playing like that today, which, I tweeted out and people can laugh at this, there were glimpses of Randy Moss. There were glimpses of Calvin Johnson. That's the kind of prodigy prospect that he was being hyped up to be, which is now laughable when they didn't use him last week against Buffalo. He had 134 yards and 2 touchdowns in almost just a single quarter of play. And then the Cardinals, they called the dogs off. They spread the ball around. He could have easily had 200 yards. And the Cardinals, this game was over by the early third quarter. So he's put himself in a position now to be very viable. I don't know how many games this team can win. If they play like that, I mean, they have the makings of a top 10 offense. There's no doubt about it. The defense played over their skis today. They had a lot of momentum because of the offense. That was great. Gannon's defense needed that. They are just they're talent starved at a couple positions that will bite them over the course of 17 games. But it was a fun one in Glendale, and I'm happy for Gannon to get this down.
I got a couple little nuggets. I got a couple little Cardinals nuggets for you from our friends at True Media. Quickly, Marvin Harrison Jr.'s game today by the advanced analytics. Yards per route run, 4th best game for a rookie receiver in the past 5 seasons. And then the Cardinals offense, this was their 2nd best offensive performance as a team this decade after a 2008 game in which Kurt Warner threw over 100 yards to both Larry Fitzgerald and Anquan Bolden. So there you go.
Those seem good. Those numbers seem good.
Great Not little bad. Nuggets there. I got to say, Johnny, there was a bunch of people.
I had all day to look stuff up.
There's a bunch of people in the comments, hyping you up, kind of saying don't let us down here, Johnny. We need you, and I feel like you delivered for them. You kind of.
I appreciate that.
Yeah,
I did my best, Marvin Harrison Jr. in the opening, and now I can just take the next 3 quarters off. I think.
Well, and speaking of Marvin Harrison Jr., we had Bo on last week, the other Bo, and he. We were kind of just asking about the vibe of the fan base, which is always the thing that I'm most interested in as we get everyone together here. And it was just so low because of the fact that, Marvin Harrison didn't get involved in that game and they lost and, they had a chance to win and all of that. And I just can't imagine how opposite the feelings are today. So take us inside Arizona. What's the feeling like today?
The only negative was that the game was over in the third quarter, and so I had to remind people, hey, we're not going to go live until this game's over. Can everybody just sit tight? And so that was a lot of fun, continually tweeting out the link hey, guys, stick with us over this Clayton Tune 4th quarter throwaway possession. But no, I mean, it was night and day. I mean, it's funny because, the Cardinals, they pack the stadium, especially when they win, especially in the home opener. Perfect team to do it against. The Ram fans do not travel. So that's, capacity crowd sold out, 99.9% are Cardinal fans. And then on top of it, RK, you cannot, I don't know if you guys have been following this, you can't buy a Marvin Harrison Jr. jersey yet. He is being sued by Fanatics. He and his dad, for whatever reason, they have a riff with Fanatics. Marvin signed something in college. They're trying to fight over money, and it's just not a good look right now. And so, everybody wants to pick up merch with MHA, you just can't find it. We do have our shameless plug, phnxlocker.com, at the number 18 collection, and there was a ton of number 18 collections on display at State Farm Stadium today. So we're fired up about that. But I mean, I think you go from what was that blown lead in Buffalo? Are the Cardinals real? We're sick of moral victories. You were beating Buffalo 17-3. Finish the job because we know you're not going to beat McVay next week. Fast forward to now is yeah, there's an expectation, and this is kind of what I push back on my co-host Bo Brock every day on our show. The Cardinals have the makings of a playoff-level offense, and their defense, for whatever reason, just wasn't addressed in free agency. So are people going to be happy if this team goes 8-9 and misses the postseason? No, they're not going to be happy. They're going to be disappointed, especially when you have a player like Kyler Murray in the peak of his playing powers and in his prime looking like this. So I think the fan base, we're going to get a whole lot of Kool-Aid drinking this week. And it's going to be if they beat Detroit, then they've got Washington coming into town and they have an opportunity put themselves in a position. The NFC West certainly looks down. I just mentioned, I think the Rams are dead. I think they're dead and buried. I don't think they're going to be viable for the rest of the year. So certainly not buying the fraudulent Seahawks beating Jacoby Brissett and Bo Nix. No offense, RK. So the Cardinals, I mean, they're a fun team. Can they get some stops along the way? That's the question.
Yeah, when I said the other Bo, I was talking about Bo Nix.
Yeah, I think between the three of us, Bo Nix might be the third best quarterback.
Wow. We don't have time for this right now. But I'll handle you later. Okay, really quick, Jeff, do you have any takes on that on the Cardinals today or the Rams?
I only have one Cardinal take, and that is Allen Eagles stand up. Kyler Murray and I, the two most notable Allen High School alums on planet Earth.
Hell yes.
I crawled so he could walk, or whatever the saying is. That's he's Allen, Texas. That's what we do. We just win.
There you go.
We're high maintenance.
Love him.
Yeah, we're high maintenance. We're hard to deal with. Our family is way too involved in all of our stuff, but we ball sometimes.
I have Nick Kroll and Barbara Bush.
What? Barbara Bush didn't go to Allen High School?
No, at my high school. Those are my competitors.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Kyler took me down. I didn't like it. I thought I was going to be the best. Kyler's a little more popular.
I've got Tom Chambers. He's most famous for that like really sick dunk. Where he like launched off another guy. Yeah, he went to my high school. And Jessica Biel, short stint at Fairview High School.
Nice. Yeah, we definitely paid
Tom
Kyler.
Chambers.
Yeah, you've led wrong.
You know, it's kind of one of those like not an alumni thing. You know, did she get her degree right? Like she transferred. You know, you gotta finish school to get the true credit. You said it's the Allen Eagles.
Yeah, we're the Allen Eagles. Yeah.
Someone on Twitter today was trying to call me an ego maniac, but they called me an eagle maniac. So we got between you and Bo here, we got two eagle maniacs.
Okay. Yeah, I think that should be merch. I think Eagle Maniacs.
Eagle Maniacs. All right, we're moving on to you, Jeff.
Why?
Because it's entertaining, and while I said winners go first, you definitely got to keep the Cowboys early. Those are just the rules. And because they're the Cowboys, they always give us something, and they certainly did something today. So my question to you, and I honestly want to hear everyone's answer, and I will just kind of give you the floor to expound after this, but was today's game more about the Saints or more about the Cowboys?
God, it's such a good question because we all know the answer's both. But if I have to pick one of those, I'll say it was more about the Saints. Hey, do you know if I hit a button on my Roadcaster, will it play for everybody?
No reason not to try.
All right.
Now this is a hot dog bun. I think it's a hot dog too.
Did it work?
That worked, yeah.
It worked, yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I love Jerry and Steven talking about hot dogs and buns. I'll say it was more about the Saints, short form, to expound later.
Go expound now.
Okay. I think pretty much every NFL team is doing a disservice to themselves if whoever's calling their plays didn't shake Kyle Shanahan's hand at some point. Now, part of this is about the Cowboys because I talked about all week, like, if the Cowboys lose this game, here's how. It's because the Saints score 14 points in 2 plays or 21 points in 3 plays because Derek Carr is not afraid to go down the field. He is looking for Rashid Shaheed on 3rd down, not Chris Olave. They will throw bombs, and you've got to be able to tackle. And, like, they're big play guys. If you can't limit the big plays, you're going to get yourself hurt. And that's what they did. There were so many gigantic plays that it was wild how you didn't seem to have any sort of answer or plan for things that I literally the night before the game went on to NFL Pro, I think it's called, and just sorted their week 1 game against Carolina, the Saints. Because all I wanted to know was I want to see all their 3rd down plays. What did they do on 3rd down? Like when they got to have it, what did they do? And just having watched those plays, I could have told you the plays that they were going to score on and get their first downs on. And it's wild to me how easy that was for them. for a team that we thought was going to have a good defense. So that was an F- for Mike Zimmer. It was an F- for everyone that plays defense for the Cowboys. And when everyone who has anything to do with the defense gets an F-, you have to get an A+ on offense to have a chance. So when you have a C on offense, well, you get smacked. And that's what happened. But I do think a lot of it is about the Saints. The Saints with Clint Kubiak running that offense kind of look like the 49ers. There's so much eye candy. There's just so great play design. And they'll line up the same personnel packages in such different ways and give you different looks. I think I will take the Saints way more seriously than I did before this game. So it's more about the Saints, but Cowboys, you're not off the hook. F-, F-.
Well, and I guess while we're still rocking with you here, we have to get the vibe check. What's the vibes like in Cowboys world today?
Vibes are great. Are you kidding me? The vibes are the exact same as they always are. That's the thing, because this fan base is all sickos. Half of them think that we're going to go to the Super Bowl every year, and half of them are waiting for this game. So, half of the city is happy because the thing that they thought would happen happened. The thing that they were waiting for to happen happened. So they're Cowboy fans that hate the Cowboys. And so now this is their I told you so moment. They're having a great time. And then the we're going 17-0 going to win the Super Bowl crowd is very, very sad and angry. Sad and angry. So the vibes are what they always are. Some people are great. Some people are sad. It's just a matter of which half is which. We're great. We're having a great time.
Hey, on that defensive performance, I know it's hard to tell off TV copy, but are you thinking like this wouldn't have happened under Dan Quinn? Like this is all on Mike Zimmer, or you think this is just the Saints, like this new offense, they're catching the whole league by surprise?
I think there's part of it could be that they're going to catch the league by surprise, but I also think that Dan Quinn would have got smashed by that offense because Dan Quinn's favorite thing to fail against is anything resembling a Shanahan offense. Like the Dan Quinn defenses were awful against him. That was part of the fun part about Mike Zimmer when he first got hired, is going and looking at all the guys from the Shanahan tree, and it was like, holy crap, Mike Zimmer knows how to defend these guys. But that's what we thought. No, Dan Quinn couldn't have done anything about it. What happened in this game is my favorite thing about the Cowboys is we all know where they're going to suck. And they ignore it. But the people who watch them, cover them, and a lot of the fan base knows going into the season, you have one NFL defensive tackle on the whole roster. Your running backs are butt. With all due respect, I think Rico's got a little something, but you don't have an NFL running back room. You have one NFL defensive tackle. You have no depth at tight end, and you just assumed that your wide receiver depth would be, oh no, we had some guys in camp, and it's gonna show up. But after week one, it was all good because, they smashed Cleveland, and it was like, holy crap, everything is amazing. But eventually, the places that you're not good at, we're gonna see it, and we saw it. Their defensive tackles, they have one guy that should be in the NFL in the entire position group. And, yeah, that's going to get you at some point.
What about all the people on my Twitter timeline that said, wait until Dalvin Cook's active next week? That's not going to fix everything?
Dalvin Cook's already suiting up. He's wearing 15. He's just going to be wearing a different number when Dalvin Cook. And that's it. Like the running back room. What's wild is after the first week, I've got to hear it from people because I'm like, yes, Zeke is washed. It's obvious. Like he's been washed for 3 years and it's just getting worse. The idea that somebody who has surpassed the age of 27 with heavy usage that we've watched get worse and worse into his career is going to ride back in and be amazing again because you remember that he was a good Cowboy for 5 years or 4 years. Like that's silly. The idea that the old running back with a ton of mileage is going to set the world on fire is so silly. But boy, Jerry Jones loves names he knows. It's coaches, it's players that they bring in. He loves bargain shopping. And if you have a name that people know, that's even better for him. Like that Mike McCarthy's the head coach because Jerry could say he's won a Super Bowl. Who should you be looking for? And I don't dislike McCarthy. I think McCarthy's a quality head coach. But like this team would never make the head coach insert hot offensive coordinator who knows exactly where this league is headed. He would never hire that because he can't go back and be like, well, I know he's good because. But like Zeke, Dalvin Cook, but boy, count those Pro Bowl. 2018, and I seen it, and you seen it, and it was out there, and it was, and it is, and that's why we did and saw, and we did, and he's a psycho. Dalvin Cook,
spot on.
Zeke is Dalvin Cook, Spider-Man thing. Like, you know who I want to be my other running backs? People you've never effing heard of that are 23 years old.
People who played college football last year.
Yes, McCaffrey got hurt, and somebody you've never heard of looks like the best running back in the world because he's 23 years old, and they can still run, and their legs work. Dalvin Cook and Zeke are going to grind their knees into dust by week 6.
I find it rich that the Cardinals guy here was the one who took the shot about old running backs.
That's okay.
Hey,
his can still go.
It's because he's never had full usage, and James Conner misses time every year. But they took him back in the 3rd round from the ACC, Trey Benson, so they'll be all right.
I'm thinking more along the lines of like Emmitt Smith,
Edgerrin James, Chris Johnson.
Yes,
for sure. No, it was just funny. I literally was on Twitter, and people were like, don't worry, Dalvin Cook's going to be active next week. This will get corrected. I'm like, Dalvin Cook? Who the
You got to
Jets?
fix your timeline. You got to follow better people.
Also,
hey, do you know how good this team would be in 2020, 2019? Well, if you had Zeke, Dalvin Cook, Jordan Phillips. Oh, Jordan Phillips, so good. And Linval Joseph still playing good football. We have a monster team in 2019.
Also, I just have to say on
go ahead.
On the 49ers running back whose name is now escaping me. Jordan Mason, thank you. That's not because he's young. It's that he's playing for a coach named Shanahan, and if your last name is Shanahan, you just get to touch running backs and turn them into gold. That's
I was
just an
stunned
NFL
they traded
rule.
for McCaffrey. I'm like, why did you do that? You don't need him. Whoever you have is going to be really, really good. But, he's good too.
All right, Johnny, more about the Cowboys or more about the Saints?
I still think the Cowboys are. I don't buy Sirianni long term during an NFL season. I think the Cowboys will be viable and contend for the NFC East. Although I like Vic Fangio, that's a different conversation. But I think Dallas gets it together at some point. I don't think they're going to be terrible. I think the Saints will run out of gas. I'm not a believer. I don't think Dennis Allen can do this for 17 weeks. I think to both your guys' points, when the rest of the league gets tape on Kubiak, like he should be I've heard people, he should be taking head coaching interviews now, because I think by week 10 or 11, and this could come back to haunt me, that I think the rest of the league is going to be like, you know what, we've seen this before. By the way, Derek Carr historically also can start fast and then look terrible by November.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought the Saints on paper were one of the worst teams in the NFL coming in this year. So that clearly that's not the case, and I'm happy for them and their fan base. But at some point, when does Kamara's usage catch up to them? Their defense is good, and this is one thing that you can't push back on. They get to play Bryce Young twice a year, who is not an NFL caliber player. They get to play a bunch of fraudulent teams in the NFC South. So I think they'll be maybe a playoff contender, to go to the postseason. They're not going to win the NFC or anything.
Bo?
Yeah, I think this game in particular more about the Saints catching the league and the Cowboys by surprise. I think what we've talked about, the Cowboys, I think they're going to be fine long term. I think they'll contend for the division. But yeah, this game in particular strikes me more as a game that you see often in September. Is just like somebody totally shocked the other team. It happens all the time, and then you look back in December and be like, I cannot believe that was the outcome in week 2. I think that's probably where we're headed here.
I think that's fair. I mean, wasn't it last year that the Bears beat the 49ers? Early in the I think it was
week 1, I think, yeah.
Is that 2 years ago?
There was the year that the Cardinals gave the Cowboys the business. Was that 2 years ago? The Cowboys are good for laying down against somebody who's not any good. We don't know if that's true of the Saints yet, but they're good for that at least once a year.
For me, I think I'll go a little more Saints, but to your point, Bo, about just catching them by surprise, if I'm coming from a Cowboys angle, I'm a little bit concerned that the Saints caught their opponent by surprise last week. Why did it happen again type of thing? But I mean, they've done a really, really good job of setting up that offense and putting Derek Carr in great situations to succeed.
I do think the Panthers are butt, and so it was hard to think, like, see the Saints last week and be like, watch out, here comes New Orleans. It was more, oh, they got to play Carolina. That's cute.
Now, I do want to say we don't want to blaspheme the Lord, but we also don't want to offend butts. Butts are great.
No, I would never want to offend butts. No, I have a great appreciation for all of them, on all creatures.
Carolina's got an opportunity not only have like back-to-back first overall picks, but I think there's a chance we could be sitting here in November. They don't have a win yet. I think it could be one of the worst teams in modern football, period. They traded away a bunch of defenders that they had that were viable. They lost Derek Brown. Like at some point, I think Andy Dalton backs him up. At some point, if you're talking about just avoiding history, you have to sit Bryce Young. I think they're the worst team in modern NFL history, in my opinion.
Well, we respect the Lord, we respect butts, and I personally respect all people named Bo, especially if it's B-O. I reserve the right to take that back if you guys mention someone who's canceled that has that name. But, you know, Bo Wolf, Bo Brock, or Bo Nix, I like them all. But today, in the last 2 weeks for the Broncos have been incredibly, I would say disheartening is the word. And I talked about this a little bit last week, but it got so much worse today. And it's like Broncos fans were prepared for this season, I think, to not be good. You know, everyone was like, okay, we're finally doing the rebuild thing. We are going and getting a young quarterback. We're kind of getting off of some of the older players and trying to start fresh and bring in a youth movement. And so there was like an acceptance 3-4 months ago that the Broncos are going to take a little bit of time. And then something terrible happened, which was that Bo Nix looked really good in the preseason and gave people a whole lot of hope. And so there was like a general excitement about just, okay, we have this guy, he looks good. We're seeing him make some NFL plays in the preseason. We're seeing him do some stuff. And what's unfortunate for Bo Nix is that this isn't really about him, but the fans are in such a bad place after seeing 8 years of bad and boring football that when they went out there today and were as bad and as boring as they've ever been, to the point where, as far as I'm concerned, Sean Payton kicked a field goal in the fourth quarter just to make sure they didn't get shut out at home. It's like full meltdown mode over here. And I think there is still some people being realistic about, you know, the fact that this is kind of the beginning of the story, not the middle or end. It's still just, you can be bad, you can be boring, but when you combine being bad and boring, it does terrible things to a fan base. And the Broncos have now been that way literally every year since they won the Super Bowl in 2015, and there's very, very, very little patience in this town right now.
You do know there's only one answer for boring football. You got to trade for Jameis. You got to get some Jameis Winston out there. That's entertaining football no matter what. 3 touchdowns, 3 picks every week.
You know, RK, I was going to throw some zingers your way. That just made me sad. I'm sad for you. That's tough, man.
And if you really want to get like really depressing and nihilistic about it, it's like, if they're this bad, you know, Sean Payton's not going to stick around forever. He doesn't have to be around for this. And then he's wasted this first round pick on a quarterback. You got to start this cycle all over again. You play it forward. Depressing.
Nothing matters, and then we die.
Yeah, I totally just you know, you guys were getting your shots in earlier, but I'm a big fan of the movie 8 Mile, so I just 8 miled you guys. I'm like, you can't say anything about me that I haven't already said.
Here, I'll be positive for a second. I do think they looked better at the end of last year, and they were much more viable at the end of last year when trying to prop up a decrepit Russell Wilson. I think eventually Bo Nix is going to look competent to maybe even good on some NFL Sundays. I don't have a lot of confidence in Vance Joseph, although he's looked good. I'll give him credit through 2 games. I picked them, RK, to beat the Seattle Seahawks week 1, and with average quarterback play, they probably do. But you can't sit Bo Nix. He's 24 years old. He's played a ton of college football. I think once the game maybe slows down for him a little bit and hits some of these easy completions, everything just looks really hard for him right now. He's got some mobility. Like, I still think even in the AFC West with the Broncos schedule, there are going to be some Sundays where he looks good enough where you're going to be able to build a case where, yep, we're going to continue to build around him. We're going to go all in this offseason. We've got a bunch of disposable money. Russell Wilson's contract mostly is off the books. So it's not an overnight thing. And to your point, didn't they go like undefeated in the preseason and he looked fantastic? So people were just like, this is going to carry over fine. Look at our easy schedule to begin the year. And obviously that's not been the case.
Yeah, that's what they said about Kenny Pickett last summer too.
Yeah, it's
Who's going to be Shedeur Sanders or Quinn Ewers? Who are you guys picking after 17?
I've made a promise to myself in Broncos country that I won't. I'm going to take some time before I start talking about that because it's gonna tear apart families. Hey, you're coming from a place of back-to-back first-round quarterbacks.
Yeah, I endured Josh Rosen and talked myself into it after 16 games. It's been 2 weeks.
Like I said, that's why I said I'm not going there yet.
Kyler Murray forced the issue for the
quarterback. Is he
Cardinals.
good? Sorry, I'm still trying to draft a guy.
Here's my big concerns as it relates to the Broncos. One, and this one is probably the more frustrating one, is I just think that I expected Sean Payton to be able to put Bo Nix in better positions to succeed. And through 2 weeks, I just feel like there has not been good game plans for him. And I think, 1 week you say, okay, like that just happens, game plans can sometimes be a roll of the dice. Back-to-back weeks now where Bo didn't look comfortable. It didn't feel like they played into his strengths. And he doesn't look like he's playing football until the fourth quarter when the game's still kind of in hand and there's a chance to go, make some plays and bring it back. And he kind of just cuts loose and plays free. And that's what the only times in these last 2 weeks, in my opinion, that you've seen him like flash. But the other 6.5 quarters that we've seen so far, he looks like he's playing really tight and thinking a bunch. And there's like a clip today of him in the huddle rattling off one of Sean Payton's 35-word play calls, and like the whole offense is like, what? And he has to redo it, and then they have to call a timeout because they didn't get the play in right. And it's just like if you were building yourself a belief and a hope in this era of Denver Broncos football, it was like, okay, well, Sean Payton is going to be able to make Bo Nix like his guy and do everything to make him really comfortable. And I haven't seen that at all. And then the other thing that I think is concerning for me, and I'm not like pulling the plug or anything, is just that I've yet to see the things that we thought and knew Bo Nix was really good at, and we knew he was deficient in some other areas, and you're hoping that he can get better in those. But I haven't seen the things that we thought he was really good at shine, which is like accuracy and processor and making the easy plays easy and even running the ball. None of that stuff has shined to me in more than maybe like a one play in a series. So I'm high on the concern meter until I can see just like 4 or 5 straight plays of him looking competent.
Yeah, I mean, he deserves a little bit of benefit of the doubt, of grace, when we're giving it to Caleb Williams. It's only been 2 games.
Totally.
But at the same time, I'm kind of with you. Like a guy whose superpower, if there is one, is like short-term accuracy. Like that works in college if you have better athletes and you're getting the ball in their hands. Like that's where your advantage is, get them the ball. It's obviously not like that in the NFL. And so like if there is not the marriage with Sean Payton scheming him up, and like if you're not a Drew Brees level accurate passer, then I think it's like he doesn't have any other major superpowers, right? And so it's kind of like where is this going to come from? Where is the upside?
For sure. And, Cavante is in the comments saying, RK, it's been 2 weeks, but relax. Like, I think I'm honestly as relaxed as I can be.
You relax.
Like I'm relaxed. You know, like I all we can do is give it time, and I think seeing Caleb Williams have some of the struggles that he's had is like a little bit relieving. None of the rookie quarterbacks have really done anything impressive so far, and so you do have to give them time. But like I said, at the same time, I'm trying. You know, I've been hurt enough now to avoid just having blind faith. So I like I said, I'm trying to just look for a couple things here and there that I'm like, okay, we can hang our hat on that, and that hasn't popped out consistently enough for me yet. So I'm fully in wait and see mode, not pulling any plugs, not freaking out. I think I'm relaxed, but we got to see some stuff soon.
This is the guy Sean Payton is gonna ride or die with in Denver. Like, I don't envision you guys. We joke about the Broncos taking a quarterback again next year. Like, that's not gonna happen. Like, the Denver Broncos are gonna stick with Bo Nix and Sean Payton as long as they're together and winning or not winning games in Denver. Like, if at any point they moved off of Sean Payton, they'd be moving off of Bo Nix and vice versa. I think it would be they're married to each other, for lack of a better term, especially with how old Sean Payton is now and how long he's been in the NFL. Like, you have to see this through. And it was always going to be a tough sell when you're in a division with Mahomes and Justin Herbert. But I do think, you know, there is not the splash plays that you see with like an Anthony Richardson, but I think you could sell people on the efficiency eventually is going to come with mastering the offense. Like, I think a good comp for him, maybe not as athletic as somebody like Alex Smith, who really needed to take time, build a roster up, and build his confidence with experience and, you know, winning football. I think you can do that with Bo Nix. But again, like, you're going to need to do that over the course of his entirety of his rookie wage scale contract, so you can bulk up your offensive line, your skill players, this defense, get him a competent pass rush. Like, to look at him as a finished product or somebody that has to set the world on fire. Part of this is, and I know Bronco fans don't want to hear this, like, do you need to wait out some of this like historic run that's happening right now with these AFC quarterbacks like Lamar and Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes? I just mentioned Herbert. Like, is Bo Nix outdoing any of those guys until his roster is built up? I just think that you're playing the long game here, for better or worse.
Well, and I think it's you're like, in those situations, you're counting on Sean Payton out scheming the other side. And that's, again, where I'm like, okay, I want to see Sean Payton, like, design a game plan that makes Bo Nix look good. And you mentioned a couple things there. And you know, obviously, when you're having a conversation like this, Bo Nix is going to be the hot button topic. But bigger problem than anything that we've mentioned so far is just the Broncos, especially on offense, lack of overall talent. There's not a single player on this offense, and I said it this offseason, so I'm not panicking here, but there's not a single player on this offense that opposing defensive coordinators are losing sleep about when they're game planning for this team coming into the week. And so that also makes Bo Nix's life a lot harder when he's out there. There's no like safety blanket great player that's just like, okay, this guy's gonna get us some chunks of yardage throughout the game. Cortland Sutton is a solid receiver. You know, there's a couple. You have like Jaleel McLaughlin making some plays and showing off some speed, but other than that, like, there's no one that is taking the pressure off of Bo with their talent, and I think that is probably a bigger problem than any of the other stuff I mentioned. All right, we've gotten into my comfort zone here. I don't know how long we've been talking about the Broncos. Could have been 20 minutes. So let's move on here. We are hoping that we get Nick Moriano for a little Bears update from the stadium, from CHGO. We'll see if we get him. I know he's busy. But until then, we will start with Jeff. I want your biggest overreaction take from the first 2 weeks of the NFL that you actually believe, like something that you're like, this is definitely an overreaction, but I think it might end up being true.
Okay, that I actually believe. Overreaction that I actually believe. Because I'm trying to think. I mean, I have an NFL take that a lot of people probably think is kind of wild. I think Joe Burrow is incredibly overrated. But I don't know if that's good enough. Because like this week, I'm trying to think just based off of this week, like the one thing that jumps out to me about the NFL this week, like it's not a hot take or whatever. It's just like whatever team you cheer for, if they sucked today, hey Cowboys, like how many teams have shown us who they are through 2 weeks of the NFL season? Like we know who the Chiefs are, and I think we know who the Panthers are. And that's about it. You watched the 49ers lose a football game to the Vikings. You watched the Raiders beat the Ravens. Like we're so early in a season, and there's going to be so many one-offs, and we have no idea the Lions lost to Tampa Bay at home. Like so many of these teams, the answer to how good or how bad are they is the real answer is a shoulder shrug. But, like we do daily shows. We're going to do a show tomorrow for an hour about the Cowboys. You can't not acknowledge what just happened. But I think the reality is I know who the Chiefs are and I know who the Panthers are. The rest of it, I don't know. We'll keep watching.
So just to be clear, Jeff's overreaction is that you shouldn't overreact.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. I didn't think I know, and I saw it. We had notes and that was going to be a thing, and I forgot that it was going to be a thing, so I didn't have a thing ready.
I'm going to add the Giants. I think we know who the Giants are. So we know 3 teams.
And the Commanders. And the Commanders. Oh, wait, I could just do one about the Cowboys. Overreaction that you actually believe. Jerry Jones is a goofball that doesn't know what he's doing.
We can come back to you. We can come back to you.
Yeah, circle back.
All right, Bo, give us your biggest NFL overreaction that you actually believe.
This is more of a way too early patting myself on the back, but I was thinking that the Ravens were going to miss the playoffs heading into the season. I thought they were a team due for some big regression. They lost so much from that staff. They had some like under the radar things that were due to regress just in terms of like turnover luck and stuff last year. They lost not only Mike McDonald, their defensive coordinator, they lost 2 other guys, 2 defensive coordinator jobs elsewhere. And so for them to lose a game that they had absolutely no business losing at home to the Raiders, they are on the way to making me look good. And really that's the most important thing.
Yeah. That is. So you're putting the Ravens on fraud watch.
I already put them on fraud watch. They're continuing along the road, the fraud road. Yeah,
fraud road, not a place we want to be. That's a good one. That at least I feel like you did a great job of answering the question. Not that anyone else on the panel didn't, but you specifically did a really good job of answering it. Johnny?
Baker Mayfield.
No,
Baker is the baller.
Stop it. No.
Oh, okay.
I think the Chargers are very real at 2-0. And I don't like not contending real. Like I don't think they're going to be Kansas City, but I think their over under was right around Arizona's this year, like 7.5. That seemed very low to me. Just Jim Harbaugh is a winner. Like that's super cliche by definition, but I think he fell into the right situation with the right QB. I mean, it's the job Sean Payton wanted, right? RK, like this is the job where, yeah, like kind of skilled positions be damned. They took a tackle that was a generational prospect in the top 10. It's paying off. You knew that either J.K. Dobbins or, Edwards, the other back, I drafted the wrong one in fantasy football. You knew one of those guys was going to pop. Dobbins looks unbelievable right now en route to being a Pro Bowler this year at running back. And then defensively, he's getting just enough out of Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa. Like, he's an elite communicator. He's an elite motivator. He has that team believing for a team that has been so grossly mismanaged and coached for the better part of a half decade with Brandon Staley. So, like, I think, unfortunately, for you guys, RK and the rest of the AFC, I think this is just the beginning for the Chargers. I think the Chargers, this is going to be the worst they are talent-wise. I think they're going to add some players in the offseason, but I think they're going to win like 11, 12 games this year.
The AFC actually is full when it comes to contenders, so not allowed.
No more.
Yep. Sorry. Oh, I guess they can replace the Ravens, huh?
There you go.
There you go.
Yeah.
What do you guys make of the kicking? What do you guys make of the kicking stuff? Is it too easy?
Our kicker's badass. That's all we got.
Yeah.
We got a kicker for you, buddy. Should have let him kick for 71 last week. He would have made it too.
You think they need to change the rules, like tighten the goalposts, make it like you lose points if you miss a field goal? Any good ideas?
I do weirdly find it bothering me that like 55-yard field goals are just automatic points now. That I don't like that for some reason.
Dude, the Chiefs were so incredibly comfortable at the end of that game, not trying to gain more yards once they knew they could kick it from like 54. And it was just like, they're just going to run the ball and they're ready. They're ready to kick it from 50 plus, and it's no big deal. It's wild that that's happened so quickly.
And it hit halfway up the net in the very dead center.
And the starting position on touchbacks is 10 yards forward from where it used to be. So not only are kickers better, offenses have to go so much shorter just to get into field goal range.
If the Cowboys get one first down, we're ready to kick that thing.
Yeah.
I think they're too good now. Like we want to talk about kickers mattering. Like this is how you do it. This is how you prove yourself, is to consistently hit from over 50 yards. So I mean, like it's not an issue until it becomes an issue in crunch time. But I think like over the course of a 17-game season, no, I think they're probably not going to mess with it.
I'd be totally down for eliminating kicking altogether. And obviously, it's very radical, and no one would ever do it. But I would be totally down for it. It's very weird to me that we're playing a game that's 11 on 11, and then just randomly we're going to decide outcomes based on the guy who just sits over there all day. And it's like, all right, let's run a totally different play for all the rest of them.
If you were designing it now, how on earth would field goals be worth more than a safety? Safety should be more.
Safety should be worth like 20.
I was going to say safety should be worth more than a touchdown. It's way harder.
Safety should be 5 or something like that, and a field goal should be 2.
I'm going 8.
Let's go crazy.
I do think though that like we might have to do something about this, whether it's like tightening the field goal posts or whatever. Like in college basketball, when people started to figure out that you should just shoot threes every time from how close that line was, like they were like, okay, we got to move this thing back. Like it. I don't like that you can gain like 22 yards and be in field goal position. It just doesn't feel right.
I'll tell you what the NFL has to love, though. This is kind of a topic adjacent. Like the league has tightened up their safety, and there's really good defensive play being had the first 2 weeks of the season. Too much like fantasy football the last couple of years, and what was it? Through last week, we had like the lowest passing yardage totals in like 15 years. Like for people who have complained about, hey, this is two-hand touch, this is flag football, this isn't real football, like, and kicking plays a part in that, like field position. I think that the league has to be ecstatic with how much quality defensive football we're getting.
All right, my overreaction, and Jeff tried to steal it for a second, but I'm turning it up a whole other notch from that. Is Baker Mayfield will firmly be in the MVP conversation.
Wow.
Gross.
Boomer sooner. Dun, 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 dun.
And I honestly, I would just love Baker, so that's why it's an overreaction that I actually believe, because I want to believe it. I've always loved Baker.
I think that Baker, to me, is what Aaron Rodgers used to be. Like, he's the likable, super cocky a-hole quarterback.
Oh man, we are all gonna hate Baker Mayfield in like 8 years.
When he gets on YouTube too much and stops reading, that could happen. I like Baker too. I've always liked Baker. He's just he's just a cocky little butthead, but everybody that he played with or for would go to war for him. And
Exactly.
It's like, you can see whatever you want. We love him.
I love that type of like attitude and moxie from a quarterback. That just fires me up every time.
It's too bad the Broncos didn't have an opening at the right time with Peyton and Baker Mayfield being available, because Baker's comp coming out, which is kind of laughable now, was Drew Brees because of his stature and how effective he was throwing the football, from a high completion percentage. Like that seems like a marriage that probably should have happened that didn't, and he's in Tampa now.
Yeah, and that marriage is quite lovely as well.
Yeah.
Okay, I have one, and I do believe it.
All right, let's hear it.
I believe it. And not everybody's going to like it, because it's already been said on this show that it's not possible, and it shouldn't happen, and it won't happen. I think the Broncos are going to pick a quarterback in the first round of next year's draft. I do.
No chance. No chance.
I believe they're going to pick a
I
quarterback.
think it's possible that Peyton's gone too. Yeah, I think there's.
Oh my God.
I think if you, now it depends, right? Obviously, if you see a guy who gets better throughout the season, but I also think Nix was one of those guys that you were hoping he could start a little bit faster, and he is not surrounded by good things. But watching him play, you're like, really? That's 6 years of college preparation, a lot of college football. That this is what we're going to get here. And if it does not improve over the course of this season, and I think they would be right to use a first-round pick on a quarterback. I think as soon as you think you can get someone better than what you have, you do it. You don't just go, well, we're going to stick this out because we're going to stick this out. If you are bad enough and you think that a prospect that's coming out this year is better than the guy that you have, you should pick him.
I think there's also, you got to keep in mind, Bo Nix is so old, he might just retire. So
it's true.
You guys are treating him like he's Brandon Weeden here. He's not 27.
No. And it's not that he's super old. I'm just also I've also been a draft guy for like 10 years, give or take. Like, I don't think Bo Nix was a first round pick. So like it's also probably part of what I'm doing.
He's a sixth quarterback taken in the draft. I mean, come on.
If Sean Payton, like Cliff Kingsbury didn't draft Josh Rosen, like it's an indictment on who picked the quarterback. And again, like they're married to each other. I'm of firm mindset. Like if you're pivoting off Bo Nix, like Sean Payton's not there anymore.
I can't do this, guys. This is not right. This is so messed up. There will be a time where I'm willing to have that conversation. Week 2 is not that. This is not right.
We're talking week 10. You made me have an overreaction. I wasn't prepared mentally and physically, even though I should have known.
You picked that one out of spite.
Maybe I did.
It's unbelievable.
Maybe that's why they picked Bo Nix in the first place.
Let's think of the Let's Effing Bo shirts at this time.
LFB, baby. LFB till I die, or at least till like week 6.
Sean Payton's also an egomaniac that should never be allowed to have say in a draft. Like, because he will 100% want to be responsible for, I picked him, watch what I can do with him, even if he might have been available with a second round pick. Although all the quarterbacks went so fast, it was wild. But yeah, it's easy to say because he's not in my city, so I can just fire recklessly.
Yeah.
That egomaniacal dude. I thought for a while, Ben DiNucci's a semi-friend of mine. I thought for a while that he was going to run DiNucci out there and be like, watch what I can do. I'm Sean Payton.
I was totally in for that. I wanted to see some Gucci DiNucci. All right. A lot of games that we didn't necessarily touch on. Does anyone have any other thoughts? You know, I don't know. We hit a little bit on Vikings 49ers, but that one was obviously shocking. There are some people saying like Geno Smith has been the best quarterback in the NFL through 2 weeks.
Okay, I have a take on that. Can we stick on that?
There we go.
See,
I knew I could get someone going off of something.
Like the Seattle Seahawks fandom, they're 2-0, and again, like they've had a nice little run with Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll's gone now. They could not have played, no offense, Arcade, 2 of the more fraudulent teams in the NFL to open the season. They get Bo Nix.
This is unbelievable.
And they have to beat Jacoby Brissett in overtime, and people are crowning the Seattle Seahawks. They got outplayed for most of the game today by Hunter Henry and Jacoby Brissett. Like Geno Smith is fine. They're probably like a 7-10 team. Like, look at their schedule. We have to grade on a curve here. They have not played good teams. You could argue they played 2 of the worst teams in the NFL that a lot of people think are going to have top 5 to 7 picks. So, Geno Smith, MVP, Mike McDonald, Coach of the Year, stop. They are unequivocally the most overrated 2-0 team this year. Like, when they have to play everybody else in the NFC West without Pete Carroll, it's not going to be pretty.
Can I at least just say that we were also just talking up the Chargers and they beat the Raiders and the Panthers?
But I've seen Harbaugh do it before, and that's Herbert.
Yeah,
Bo.
I'm done with Geno Smith being relevant. Get that off. Get that out of here. It's over. You lost Pete Carroll. You ran Pete Carroll out of town, and everybody's like, "Oh, we made this fantastic new hire, the guy that coordinated the Ravens defense, and we shut down Bo Nix and Jacoby Brissett, and let's have a parade." I'm over that. Play real.
I really talk about how Jim Harbaugh won because he cheated.
Oh, yes.
And then he left the school to eat that punishment and pretend that he had nothing to do with it. And the guy who replaced him, like, cried, defending him, like, I will go to bat for this man. He's my hero. What a champion of young men. And then they stop cheating and they get their asses kicked all the time.
Yeah, that's we should talk about that. We should also talk about the fact that the Chargers are always just going to be the Chargers, and the other shoe is just hovering right now. I'm not wishing any ill upon anyone, but something is going to happen.
They're going to charge her. They're going to charge her.
Exactly. The Chargers will charge her eventually. So I wish the Broncos won today so that I had the energy that Johnny has to go after one of our in division rivals, but I don't have anything today. But I know the Chargers will eventually charger.
I feel.
Can we talk about how the
been
best thing?
so many times.
Can we talk about how the best thing that receivers can do in the world is just be honest, even if you're not quite totally being honest? Like Malik Neighbors last week when they were like, "Hey, tell us about Daniel Jones," and he didn't say it, but he kind of said, "Well, he sucks. I did my job and got open, and he can't throw." And then suddenly this week he gets fed and has a bunch of catches and yards. Same thing happened last year with the Cowboys. CeeDee Lamb threw a B fit after like week 4 and was like, "You guys don't throw me the ball, and that's stupid." And they're like, "Fine, we will." And then they were awesome. Receivers should always cry, and then they get the ball bunch, and then teams do better. So if you're good at receiving, talk crap to your coach or quarterback.
The ironic thing with Neighbors, he's going to be the last man standing there. Like his quarterback, head coach, and GM are all going to be fired, and he'll still be there. So he can stand on that.
100%. Yeah. Maybe by the end of the season.
Oh, yeah.
Bo, you didn't get one here. Is there any last things that you wanted to hit on? Any players you want to dunk on? Coaches you want to embarrass?
I have a very small take. Did you guys see the one-handed interception by Cam Taylor-Britt in that Chiefs Bengals game? I mean, sick play. But then they're saying this is just like the Odell catch. I mean, the Odell catch was so much more difficult. He grabs the ball like behind his head and goes and gets it. It was, I mean, let's not make comparison the thief of joy. Let's just enjoy that incredible play that he made. Let's not go crazy.
All right, I have one more.
Where does it rank though? Is the best like? I think we've come to an agreement that the Odell catch is the best catch of all time. So is that the best interception of all time? Is that where the comparison comes in?
Well, why can't we just enjoy the catch? Why does it have to be the best of all time? What a play by Cam Taylor-Britt.
Who's better, MJ or LeBron? Like we need comparisons in this world.
LeBron, obviously. Can we also just acknowledge that every catch made like 2010 and after is way less impressive than before, and the technology of the gloves is effing incredible.
And the defense, the fact that guys
but also if like I don't know, Marvin Mims was playing in 1960, he'd be the greatest receiver of all time.
That's my favorite take. People hate when I have that one, but I love that take.
He would have dieted and exercised differently, though, so he would have been the 60 version of him, and he would have still been not very good.
My person that I always used for that was Emmanuel Sanders. So if he played in the 60s, he would be considered the best football player of all time.
I mean, anybody on a practice squad right now would be the best receiver of all time.
Yeah, a lot of people really hate that.
Babe Ruth playing against plumbers and technicians and mechanics, and he's the best baseball player of all time.
Have you guys seen the movie Idiocracy?
Oh, it's so good. Yeah, the water needs electrolytes, or you need the plants need electrolytes.
It's what they crave. The last time I had that take, someone came to me and said, when you're in your 60s, some 25-year-old kid is going to be telling you that Beef Supreme would be the best player in your era, and you're going to be really mad, just like me right now. So I always think about that movie,
and I'm sure it's true.
It's absolutely true.
It's going to happen to us too.
You don't understand Peyton Manning. Like, just because this guy can run a 4.1 and throw it 80 yards in the air, like Peyton Manning could diagnose everything at the line of scrimmage.
He called protection so good.
Okay. Let me double check here. I don't think we're gonna get Nick Moriano. He's just working too hard for us. But I think we've had a great show without him.
I mean,
thank you for leading the way, RK.
We made it.
What's that?
I said thank you for leading the way.
Oh yes. Like I said earlier in the show, Adam Hogue will be your normal host here, but he was obviously busy on Bears postgame show tonight, which they do 2 hours. They're just like more post. Like they're like, I think their eventual goal is like, if we never stop, like the postgame never ends. You know,
I couldn't talk about Matty Eberflus for more than 10 minutes, and I'd be done. I couldn't.
What were those challenges? That was so dumb.
That was crazy. So when Vic Fangio was the Broncos head coach, he missed every challenge he ever went for. So I just started calling them super timeouts. I was like, oh, he's not challenging this play. He just wants a super timeout. It just gives him a little more time. So I think Matt Eberflus has discovered the super timeout.
RK, I think you're a top 2 all NFL Sunday Huddle, all city host that I've ever seen. And I also need you guys to know that I have to go to the bathroom.
All right. That's a good place for us to wrap.
Thanks for sharing.
For Johnny Venerable of PHNX, Jeff Kavanaugh of DLLS, Bo Wolf of PHLY, I'm RK from DNVR. We will catch you next Sunday on the All NFL Sunday Huddle. This was great. Appreciate you guys.
I want me some glory hole.
We all silly like the mayor.